think we're ready to begin. At 6 o'clock, this is the informal meeting for the common council. Can we begin with roll call? Okay. I will do roll call. Fred Ford. Henry.
Here.
Gary, or I don't know if Gary is online. Logan.
No,
Okay.
that's it.
Ron.
Yes.
Ronnie.
Here.
Third one is Jason, I know is not joining us. And Lola called me earlier, she's sick this evening. Rich.
Here.
Jenny.
I'm here.
Claire.
Here.
And Dominic.
Here.
So we're beginning this evening with a brief presentation by the CEO, Dr. Urschel from Columbia Memorial, at Councilmember Morante's request to give us an update on the status of CMH's application for reclassification as a critical access hospital. So I will pass it over to you, Dr. Urschel.
Thanks. It's Dorothy. Thanks, Ms. Morris. Appreciate your time tonight. I'm joined by my colleague, Brian Mahoney, who's our Chief Financial Officer down in the corner of the screen there. So thank you. So essentially, we just had a town hall, and as you know, we presented to you a few months ago prior to Christmas holidays. And really, nothing has changed substantially. So number one, we continue with our Southern strategy, which essentially includes the advancement of mental health beds on our campus, which is a 12-bed geropsychiatry unit. We have that CON application is in fact approved, but New York State Department of Health has us complete a closure plan for the unit that we're going to utilize, which was a vacant unit. It's an unoccupied unit on the hospital. So we're still waiting for that approval. The dollars have been released to us once we want to use them. They're at our disposal. That's the $5 million grant that we applied to for the mental health expansion. So really today, as of today, we're waiting for the Department of Health to approve the closure plan. So we're closing 12 med-surg beds to open 12 geropsychiatry beds. So that's the first part of the plan. And I'm happy to take questions around that and then move to the next part of the plan.
Council members, any questions?
Nope.
The
Go
second part of the plan, and again, this is a three-pronged approach because the basic tenets in terms of financial solvency, they all work together. And the second part is Green Medical Arts. And as you're all aware, Green Memorial Hospital was once a hospital in Greene County, and that closed in the 1990s. Columbia Memorial Health purchased that site and made it into a medical office building with diagnostic imaging as well as laboratory medicine. And we offer a myriad of services there currently. The plan, and it's already underway, construction, is to build an ambulatory surgical center as well as an enhanced cardiac center where we will see patients with chest pain and dysrhythmias and or any type of cardiac issue on that site. We've not been able to do that before. We do have a cardiac practice there, but this is really advanced. And then the ambulatory surgical center will have 4 operating rooms and 2 procedure rooms. And we'll be doing anything from ophthalmology, orthopedic surgery, gynecologic surgery, breast cancer surgery, general surgery, and urologic surgery. We plan on having that completed by the first quarter of January 2027. We also received a $5 million grant to fund that project. In addition to that $5 million, we received $20 million from Albany Medical Center to fund it and coordinate the project management. Again, we're very excited about that project because we've seen a significant outmigration of patient volume out of Greene County. They either go south to Kingston or north to Albany. So we feel that we'll add more services in that county and also provide more referrals to the main campus from a hospital perspective. And then the third part of the approach, and I'm happy to stop there and answer any questions about Green Medical Arts. in that expansion as an ambulatory surgical center.
I guess my question, yeah, sorry, I have a question. I
Sure.
guess it might be, it sounds like you're talking a lot about Greene County, which is wonderful. Great for them. But I guess I'm more, do you have any data on the services that we're gonna be losing in Hudson at Columbia
Yeah, so we're
Memorial?
not losing any services in Hudson, sir, so that's my next
Oh,
thing. And
thank you.
I just want to share with this group that we serve both counties as a healthcare provider. And many of the patients who go currently to Greene County are actually patients of Columbia County. So what we see is patients really go between the two physicians. So we have physicians that offer services in both counties, and we have patients from both Columbia and Greene counties that utilize services both in Greene County and Columbia County. So that's that. And then the third approach was the right sizing of our hospital. And we have seen significant deficits, especially post-pandemic. We had a year of a negative $22 million deficit. And, you know, I'm going to go to Brian for a minute to talk about the financials, and then he'll come back to me and I'll talk about the core services. So, Brian, why don't you talk about our financial issues over the last 3 years post-pandemic, 4 years?
I'll even start pre-pandemic for a minute, just for context. Definitely, I've been with the organization for 16 years. We made a little bit of money. We lost a little bit of money. We were fine. We were starting to see declines in our inpatient census, and the 24/7 acute care facility, the hospital, is really one of our core overhead spaces where to run that 24/7 operation, it's the most expensive care setting that we offer. With those declines that we were starting to see, the organization was starting to really think differently about outpatient services, which is part of the ambulatory surgery strategy that Dorothy had mentioned, really trying to kind of push towards outpatient care as a focal point for financial stability and success of the organization. Once the pandemic hit, our inpatient census went down by 20% immediately, and it's gone down even further since. And the decline in the number of inpatients that we have has really challenged our top line revenue. And then I think everybody's heard of the Great Resignation from 2 years ago. I think everybody's probably heard of the agency staffing crisis that happened in that same period of time with the Great Resignation. Those are all just increasing our expense profile. So in the last few years, we've had the kind of double-edged sword of we're seeing revenue go down because of less inpatients. We're seeing our expenses go up because of the cost of labor and agency, and that has led to significant deficits. We were very much supported post-pandemic by a lot of the government assistance that came through. It was a very interesting experience in that we checked many boxes of distressed hospitals, quote unquote, the way the government defined them. And we're benefiting significantly from the government support that was coming in 21, 22, 23. And within that time frame, we're absolutely working on a future strategy to try to financially stabilize the organization. And that's what Dorothy's described as part of our Southern market strategy with the surgery center, the inpatient behavioral health expansion to meet the community need, and then the conversion to a critical access hospital. We've gotten to a point where, with the support of the Albany Med Health System, we have stabilized in many ways, but still need to execute on this strategy in order for CMH to be sustainable well into the future, which is why we've put forward this strategy. And again, as Dorothy's described, are going through the process of these community town halls, forums to try to answer people's questions, make sure that there is an understanding of what our plan is, and to try to really just offer that stability into the future. And maybe, Dorothy, I'll pause for any questions on my comments for a minute.
Yeah.
I do
I
have
have a question.
my name is Claire Cousin. I represent the fifth ward on the council. I participated in the first round of the stakeholder interviews. And when we had some of that feedback session, one of the things that I highlighted was about the hiring recession, and how I know firsthand from talking to both constituents and neighbors that there are people who sit on the waiting list to be hired for months without being called back. And I bring that up to sort of ask, because it was highlighted that that was a great talking point. But at all of the town halls that I've attended since then, I haven't heard too much about what the plan is to both retain and encourage hiring the people that are on the waiting list. And I also hear a lot of discontent from current staff members that are not just worried about job security, but aren't clear about what the steps are to make their work safer for them. With new changes, I just feel like there's a level of security that should be offered. So my question is, like, or one, I'm wondering, what extra steps are you taking to make sure that staff are both well versed in what's happening, feel comfortable in what's happening, their concerns are brought to the table and, honored? And also, how are you planning on working with local government and community on economic development and making sure that you're meeting the needs of both Greene County and the city of Hudson and Columbia County, so that people do have access to jobs as one of the biggest employers?
So I'll just start, and Dorothy could say the same thing I'm about to say. Last year was our highest number of onboarded staff that we've had in any sort of recent memory. I think it was just under 400 people were onboarded into the organization, and over 50 of them were.
Were they from outside of the area? That's another question that comes up often about
Most-
bringing people in from outside of
The
the
majority,
community.
the majority are between the two counties that we recruit from, and some from Ulster County, and very, very few from the Albany County area, just Selkirk. We do recruit from Selkirk as well as East Greenbush.
And then the other data point to offer is over 50 employees that onboarded last year were employees that are returning to the organization. So we've taken many steps in the past few years to try to develop different recruitment and retention programs. The list is long. The success is shown in the numbers in some respects, and we expect to continue that progress, as it were. And then on
And
the
I'll-
economic development front, I'll just offer that I'm on the board of the Columbia Economic Development Corporation. I'm also on the board of the Chamber. I represent CMH on both of those boards. In that, I try to make sure I'm bringing back to our organization what the county's, plural, economic development looks like. We have a participation on the Greene County Economic Boards too. Always looking to try, as the biggest employer in the two counties, one of the biggest employers in the two counties, to make sure that we're making awareness of what jobs we offer. I'm sorry to hear about those that were on the wait list for that extended period of time, but definitely steps have been taken to try to make sure that we are front facing when it comes to both employment and economic development.
Dorothy?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly echo what Brian has said already, and we did share this information at the last town hall and the one prior to that. We also meet with our employees at a minimum on a quarterly basis and do a town hall. I personally meet with employees that like to reach out to me and I either ask me questions by email or I personally meet with them. We continue to sit with them and explain that we are not laying off. We are not reducing positions. And in fact, we're adding positions to the main campus, about 30 to the main campus and about 42 to the Greene Medical Arts Building. In addition to that, we have 100 vacancies right now, so there are a number of jobs to apply to. So from a job security perspective, that should not be a concern. And I continue to reiterate, unfortunately, there's misinformation being sent around that is completely inaccurate. And so that's what's believed instead of the source of truth, which should be the administrative team at Columbia Memorial.
We have a question from Councilmember Frontic.
Thank you. Dorothy, so what I'm hearing is to help stabilize employment, is that the goal also for, the increase of the reimbursement is going to help you stabilize employment, increase employment, and make it a little bit more consistent?
Absolutely, because once we so the Critical Access Hospital affords us a number of millions of dollars once we're at a cost plus reimbursement state, and it provides us with solvency. And what it does is it allows us to reinvest in our community, and we would continue to expand in primary care. And just as a gentle reminder to all of you that we have 37 outpatient centers that we provide care in, from primary care to pediatrics to pulmonary, cardiac, orthopedics, breast, imaging centers, laboratory centers in Volusia, Greene, and Columbia counties. We're the sole provider for healthcare in the counties. And, you know, that will continue. There are no core services that will be carved out. We will continue our current core services. I think the question that was asked previously was, you know, what services will be taken away? None. No services will be taken away. The change is in the hospital number, which is 25 beds versus the current 50. And in fact, we were just talking about that today, and it's a little more difficult to understand if you're not within the business itself, but we have patients that have a long length of stay. In fact, this morning, there are 13 patients that have a length of stay greater than 20 days. Those are patients waiting for nursing homes, guardianships, and those are beds not turning over. So those are beds not being utilized by patients coming through the door. We also have surgical patients that right now we're working on initiatives where total joint replacement, so that's a hip replacement and a knee replacement type surgery. Right now they're staying overnight, and every other hospital in the capital region are sending those patients home, and we are continuing to do so and following that path and protocol. So we in fact had a robust meeting last night with our surgeons, and it went extremely well, and we're really trying to advance ourselves and really become, I would say, more self-critical in terms of care coordination and the work we're doing associated with surgical care. But none of that, those services are changing. And I think that, again, is the misinformation that's being sent around. We're not changing any of the core services. Those continue.
So if I could just, you know, in the interest of time here, the intent here was to have an update, Dominic, as you had asked for. Status is that the application has been put through, and now it's up to, the timeline is really in the hands of federal government and New York State DOH. Are there any other questions from the council?
I just got two more real quick. So, Dorothy, so you're
Yes.
saying that they're gonna increase the psych, beds, correct?
Yes. Yes, that's
So
correct.
right now, the snapshot is, if there's no beds available, because you said there's 12, they're in the emergency room, correct?
No, we
They might
have
be-
22 inpatient psychiatry beds right now. We're advancing these beds to adding an additional 12, which is geropsychiatry, which is a different subspecialty of psychiatry. Those patients with memory and Alzheimer's that have other comorbid conditions that include psychiatry and mental illness. And what we saw in our review, we had an external consultant come in, and we saw that that was going to be an increase of 4% over the next couple years in terms of that volume, and we certainly have seen that. We work very closely with external agencies, to your point, and we also work with our system hospitals. All 4 of our hospitals have psychiatry units, and if we need to move patients, we do. We do all of that today. That's not changing, and we'll continue to provide those good services to the vulnerable population.
So I think, Dominic, you had another question?
Yeah, just for, is there any other public, that you guys are doing? So anyone that's, interested can show up or attend? Is there any other? public,
Yes, in April, we're going to provide another town hall, but since they've all been provided in Columbia County, we were requested to provide one in Greene County. So in April, we will be speaking in Greene County in April at Greene Medical Arts to answer any questions. And I'm always available to answer any questions, and I do so.
So
Would that one in April be on Zoom like the other one was?
We can,
Yeah.
yes, we do, but we do both in person and in Zoom. Yeah, we're
Great.
Teams.
So I think we're gonna have to move on here. And I want to thank both of you from CMH for joining us this evening. I have been attending the town halls and the meetings that CMH has put on. Very informative. The last one, I think, ran for nearly 2 hours. But I would encourage you and all of our constituents to attend those sessions and to ask questions. They're very in-depth. And so that would be my recommendation. I don't see any hands raised, Logan, no, and I don't see anything from members of the public in the room. So I want to thank you both very much for joining us.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you for the time. I really appreciate it, and we're always welcome. We're happy to come back if you would like us to. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
So, going back to our regular business, the minutes from the January common council meetings have been posted. Minutes from, the subcommittees, safety services, infrastructure and legal have also been posted. Departmental reports received in January have all been posted. And we're now going to go to reports from our subcommittees, brief reports. I do want to make a note at the beginning, at the top of this meeting, that there's going to be a slight process change in how the informal meeting operates in conjunction with the formal meeting. So you may recall in the last council, we would have, when there was a resolution, whatever, we would have somebody would have a motion and a second, and we would sign those in that meeting. What this meeting should really do is simply introduce, without any votes, anybody can introduce anything. We should simply be introducing resolutions, local laws, whatever it is, the bills. And then in our meeting where we actually vote, we should be having a motion to vote on the resolution. And those will be formally on an agenda item. There will be a motion to vote and a second, and then once there is a motion to vote and a second, then we can vote. So that we will not be doing the signature piece tonight. We won't be doing the introduction in seconds. That will occur in the meeting where we actually vote. But that motion should be a motion to vote. So any questions on that? Just a simple process piece. Okay, great. So committees, we have, let's see, we can start with safety.
Sure. It was a pretty quick meeting, mostly revolved around the committees are back again and we're going to form a proper agenda with proper public comment, have those discussions at the meeting, and hopefully next month will be a much heavier agenda, but we touched on the new parking system. Obviously it needs a few tweaks here and there, and hopefully we can affect that easily. We got a report from the fire and telling us how many calls they had, which is quite significant to date. Police as well, a lot of activity, but fortunately a lot of our problems are parking and false alarms. So we're very fortunate for that. That was pretty much it for parking, unless there are any specific questions. I'm sorry, for safety, unless there are specific questions.
You're also infrastructure tonight.
Yes, Jason is the committee chair for DPW committee, but he is out of the room tonight. So I'm sub chair, so I'll give a little spiel about that. Same, we did not have a written agenda for the meeting, but we got a report from Rob and significant activity as well. I'm sure everyone can see we had a lot of weather, we had a lot of water issues, but financially, DPW is pretty much right on track, aside from snow removal and salt budget, which it's like playing the lottery and forecasting for the future. So unless there are any other specific questions.
Okay, the salt budget numbers, we really have gone over.
Yeah,
So we should be expecting to, in this meeting, to see some
Yeah, we're
transfers
probably
or requests.
Yeah, we're gonna need some transfers and requests. We had an order, for example, for 700,000, 700 tons. Thank you. And we've gone through 650 so far. And as for example, we had a similar allotment the year prior and went through half as much in the entire season. So, and as we know, it's hit or miss almost. You know, if we have a snowstorm on a holiday, on a weekend, it's time and a half, and it just costs us more in general, just like any other business. So we'll have to change some funds around. Hopefully we have a mild February.
I have a remark or request. I got a communication from a constituent that just asked about a very specific part of the Fifth Ward. I don't think that there's a sidewalk there, and that's why there's no path cleared, but kids walk from that path to get to school. So they were wondering if there's a way that DPW can add that to their snow removal list. I can forward that to the
Please do.
committee and
That's-
just
I
have it.
spoke to
Big
Rob,
first
and he
agenda
did
item.
take care of that.
Okay.
Yeah,
There we go.
and I'm like, because they did a walking line, not a sidewalk. And I think initially was the issue, where do you do the snow? So now it's gonna be on the rotation, because you can't block a driveway
Mhm.
and you can't push the snow with the location, but he did go back that day,
Okay.
that we got the emails, and he did take care of it that day. But yeah, I think it's gonna be on his radar, and I'm gonna make sure it stays on his radar, just because, you know, of the nature of that need. One quick update, Henry, I think, is that, the announcement that we're gonna be installing the rest of the parking, kiosks.
Great.
Right, and, also the increase, of the parking, not just parking, also the tickets revenue, to the police department, I think was very, a positive.
Oh, yes, yeah. We didn't have disseminated reports from the departments yet, but next month we will, like had been in days of yore. So yes, there was since the police department took over the parking bureau, I think it was, well, maybe over the 2-month period, it was a revenue of like 130,000.
There was significant increase.
Yeah, it's a significant increase, but you know, so it's great. So yeah, yes, thank you very much.
One of the things that, Captain Miller did say is that with the addition of the bootable, devices that the, officers now can install on overnights, it allows it to be done quicker. And also that, it can be, so we have to call the tow company, the officers now can boot the vehicles. And, so that allows that for turnover a little bit more, you know, for that payment of those tickets.
Services? That's you, Dominic.
Yes, okay. Just briefly, again, just like Henry said, it was our first meeting, for services. And that, you know, Calvin gave us, the report. And the biggest thing, I guess, was I think 8 or 9 days that the youth center was closed because the heat was not working, so they had to wait for a replacement part. So the youth center was closed for, I think, 8 or 9 days. And the senior center for the after school program was closed, I think, 3 days. So now they're back up and running. I don't know, I did mention that, I don't know if they're open during the holiday, but I did mention if we could use that time to open while the kids are on break for these 4 days. And also the push for the need for the assistant director to be involved and in place before camp starts, because that's going to be a big part of that job description, is overseeing the camp. And also the hiring of the part-time labor for the camp. So those are the 2 jobs that are going to be probably coming our way, especially the finding the finances for the assistant director.
Any questions? Okay. Legal committee, we met last Thursday. We basically went back to some of the things that we have been working on in the last session. We discussed the short-term rental rules, specifically in relation to residents of Hudson who may be part-time, who live here a minimum of 50 days a year, who wish to rent out their property when they are on vacation or away. Currently, they can rent out for up to 60 days in a year. And we will be recommending, and I will be putting together a draft change to the code to allow for 120 days of rental for people who are out of town. This will have 0 impact on long-term rentals, because these are people who actually live in their properties part-time. So it does not have any downside on that arena, and will help with providing additional short-term rental revenue to the city. And as a number of residents have asked to have that expanded from 60 to 120. 180 is not unusual in some municipalities, so that seemed a reasonable request. The other thing that we took up was we had begun to discuss this at the end of last year, e-bike and scooter safety. And we had identified a three-pronged approach to that. Education, enforcement, and updating our ordinances. And we did receive materials from other municipalities to look at for ordinances in other locations. We decided that the enforcement and the educational component, I think Dominic, you had some pieces on that when we discussed it before. We would like to refer that to the safety committee. That's where we think that belongs, and then legal will work on reviewing the ordinances in other locations and bringing something to this group to review for updating ordinances. So that was 2 old items. We also reviewed the open meetings law, video conferencing law, which we are going to be discussing later this evening. We just went through that. We did not have any changes to make to it. We Hudson put in place a local law in 2022 at the end of COVID. The state updated its video conferencing. They've updated it again last year. So we do have something on the books relating to video conferencing. However, it does not really address specific situations of extraordinary circumstances. It simply goes with whatever the state is stating is an extraordinary circumstance. So what we'll be looking at later this evening is a replacement really for that, which will allow for codifying the ability for people to vote when they are not present physically for reasons that the municipality has determined are acceptable reasons for absence. And then finally, we had a request to add a review of our parking minimums particularly for new developments. So we are going to be taking that on as an item to review. As you're all aware, a number of years ago, the requirements for parking for new developments were eliminated from the code. And so at this point, it's really just relying on the planning board to evaluate what the parking requirements would be for any given development. But there is no guidance from the city as to what is a reasonable level of parking. So we're going to be looking at that. And that's all we have from legal. Any questions?
I mean, just think of the parking, because I heard that it's a 4th ward now is going to be voting in the 5th ward, so.
That's coming up next Board of Elections communication.
Right, but yeah, but I'm saying for the parking for the firehouse. So that's still in process of working that out.
That's a different issue. The issue that was brought up in legal was to go back and relook at our code. And rather than simply being silent on the subject of the number of parking spaces that a new development should have, we should come up with some plan to have that, to give some guidance to the planning board.
Is that including the community host that Jenny was talking about? The agreement that if they can't provide parking, then there could be a fund?
We will look at it. We're now just beginning to look at it. Jenny, go.
I'm putting together a really, a document that will address a lot of this, and we can start a conversation. I've been doing a lot of research, so I can provide everything.
Yeah, I think one of your photos are on the new signs, because you put so much, time into that parking. Yeah.
What's what?
Nothing.
Oh, no.
Okay. And if there are no other questions, finance hasn't met yet in this session, so there's no report from finance. We can go on to our next item. Board of Elections communication. I pulled this one out from the other communications because I want to make sure the public hears it. They will be hearing directly from the Board of Elections also. This is not something that requires any action on our part. Effective immediately, the 5th and 4th wards are being combined. One consolidating Hudson 4th Ward poll site currently located at 401 to the 5th Ward, which is the fire station. When everything moves, hopefully midsummer. What currently occurs at 401 will be occurring at 11 Warren Street. So just be aware of this. BOE will be contacting the fourth ward residents and making sure that they are aware of the changes. Early voting for now is still at State Street. Phase 2 will be moving everybody from St. Mary's over to 11 Warren Street. So for that phase, they will be notifying the voters who currently vote in St. Mary's that their new location will be at Warren. So that's fairly straightforward.
Usually they send a letter
They will
to
be,
everybody
yes, so what they,
if they've changed.
they said we will notify fourth ward voters using the annual mail check card, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then and there will also be a prominent notice on the website, press release, newspaper advertising, and then they'll be doing the same thing when they get to phase 2 from everybody from St. Mary's. Okay,
That communication wasn't posted on the website, right?
excuse me?
Yes.
That communication wasn't posted on the website.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
it is. If you go down to communications, there is one for the
Oh.
4 sections.
Yeah, it's a.
We have folders by topic.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
Different.
Okay.
Yeah, we have organized it by
You don't have
topic.
to look everywhere.
I'm outdated now. Okay.
Okay. Other communications that we received a communication regarding the youth department. We received a communication regarding the use of the commercial dock. We also got communication regarding zoning board training. And we had a communication regarding the Snoop Club. With regard to the commercial dock utilization, this was a communication with a proposed, you may recall, those of you who are on the council, that we had a discussion of this at the end of last year. The council did not vote to adopt the revision to the code. I would like to refer that communication to the legal committee, so the legal committee can look carefully at exactly what is in that proposed revision to the code, and then we can bring it back to this group. Go ahead.
We just got an email also from the lawyers from Colorado, about this.
Excuse me,
From the lawyer for Colorado, he sent
Okay.
it to the full council at 6:30, but I wanted you to have that on your mind so that
Okay.
we don't take any further action until you look.
I will thank you for bringing that up. So in general, the cutoff for anything that comes before this meeting, this month it was Friday because we are meeting on Tuesday rather than Monday. Going forward, it will be Thursday because we meet on Mondays. And it'll be Friday for our regular meetings, which meet on Tuesday. And that's to make sure that everybody has the documents in front of them with enough time to look at them. And also so that the clerk's office can actually organize everything and get everything posted. But I will look at that and we will move that to communication for next week. So we have a number of resolutions, transfer resolutions. So our first resolution, this is just the transfer of funds for the Burberry grant. Back in January of last year, we approved a resolution to apply for a grant, Hudson River Estuary Grant. That grant has been received in the amount of 123,000. And this is a request, Heather confirmed on the grants side, the amount of match funds required from the city. This is a request to move $37,000 from fund balance to do the required match for the estuary grant. Any questions on that?
It's only 10% match.
It's actually a 30% match.
Oh, so this is kind of the.
This is 37,000.
Okay, got it.
It's 37,123. So when this first came up, the resolution made a formal commitment of a minimum of 15,000. And then I believe in the course of, probably in the course of the discussion, the state has posted a match of 30%.
But to Henry's point, the letter says 10%.
Yeah, that's not correct. Yes, I think that's typo. I did the math. It's 30.
Yeah, it's just 10% and that is 37. 30%.
Yes.
Are there any strings on what we're using that for? Just for the shacks, or is it just for the estuary study?
Well, I don't have the detail on it. I think that you could probably go to the mayor's office and talk to them about exactly
Gotcha.
what the grant is going to be used for.
It's the letter says planning phase and design documents.
Yeah.
For the further.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Okay. We do have a lot of plans still. We have probably a file cabinet of plans that we've received over the last 20 years. I don't know, since okay, well, all right.
Who's trying my talking very softly.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yes. The next, these are chargebacks. The next I have is a police department transfer from travel telephone, payroll 1,500, materials alarms to schools and uniforms. The next one is for the fire department, again, chargeback from inspection to purchase of equipment. Two of them are purchase of equipment, one of them is maintenance of equipment. Stop me if you have any questions on any of these. The next is a request for consultant from workers' comp to consultant expert fees for a survey of Oakdale Park. This is also a chargeback to 2025 expense for a required survey relating to the grant for Oakdale Park. Now we are looking at our appointments. We have a resolution to add a new member, Emily Zukowski, and to reappoint for the term Andrew Gitsky, Alexandria Samchenko, and Michael O'Hara. Then for the Public Works Board, we have a resolution to reappoint David Marston to continue on the Public Works Board. And that term is a one-year term. Okay. Next up is the Scoop Club license. So, Ken, I believe you're there.
Yes, I am.
Okay. So, Ken has been working on this license with the Scoop Club. We've had many discussions with Sam. And we have a revised license agreement. Something I want to make very clear about this is that essentially the day-to-day operation of the riverfront, the waterfront Wednesdays programming, none of that will change. The changes to this license essentially clarify what some of the terms are, and in fact, it makes things, I think, a lot easier. I think Sam is here and he can speak to it, but it makes things clearer and easier for the Snoop Club to know what the expectations are. So that when you have a contract where there are no stated expectations, it is very difficult to address potential breaches, either for the person who is holding the license or for the licensor. And so we've made some clarifications there. One change that we made also in the previous agreement, any seasonal agreements that Snoop Club entered into, I'm thinking specifically of the Hudson Ferry, required that it requires approved by the city, but it required also that they come back before the council, which greatly delayed their ability to simply have an agreement. We're going to do an agreement with the Hudson Ferry, and then all it needs is a letter from the mayor. Once the council approve the license for the mayor to enter into the license with the Club Club, then we pass it off. We're not engaged in micromanagement of the actual details of who seasonally is using the dock. The other update to it was an increase in the number of events, number of boat rides, I believe, if that's the right word. And the fee schedule was revised to bring it in line with comparable fee schedules in other areas on the river, in other municipalities. So those are the substantive changes. We did receive from Sam a couple of updates, and I think, Ken, I'm going to pass it off to you to talk about the updates that Sam had sent to us.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, a revised license agreement proposal that was modified from last year came in. We've been working on trying to iron out the details. One of the main concerns I had with it, which is really within the purview of the Common Council, is to clearly define what the expectations were from the dock management. The license agreement had been extremely vague on that. It just said that they would be managing the dock, and thought it was really important to have clear expectations that are fully understood by both the city and by the sloop club if they're going to be managing the dock, what that would entail, what their obligations were. We had some discussions with that. I think because my job is not to decide what they should do. I feel that my job is to make it clear to everybody what agreement is reached, so that everybody's on the same page. But as far as the substance, that's not my territory. So particularly, in 1B, the dock management, that had no detail whatsoever. It just said that they would manage the dock. And so some of the questions that came up, was to what extent are they there full-time, part-time? How do they manage this? And they basically outlined what they have been doing in the past. And so this is reflective of what they've been doing for the last, they said they've been doing for the last couple of years, which is not full-time. They don't, you can see the money compensation is quite small, but I think it's important for the council to look at that and make sure that that's satisfactory, that the expectations of the council are in accordance with what they intend to do, which is basically periodically looking, observing, maybe on a daily basis, but they're not there watching every boat coming in and out. Anyway, that was one of my biggest concerns, because it was so vague, and we wanted to be clear so that the expectations are understood all the way around. A lot of the other stuff is more.
And can I just say something on that?
Yeah.
So one of the issues here, and this was changed in another part of the license, the way the previous one was written, the seasonal users of the dock were being listed as sub-licensees. That was not technically correct, so they are not sub-licensees. The license, the agreement, is between the sloop club and the city. And then the sloop club can enter into arrangements with seasonal users. And so to describe the seasonal users as licensees or sub-licensees essentially would put them under all of the rules and requirements of this agreement, as opposed to they simply have an agreement with the sloop club for seasonal use. And so when we were discussing this section B, we tried to capture in real life what actually happens here. So if Sam was not on the dock, he's out for a few days, he will get a call if somebody happens to dock without permission, and then he will address it. And so that's what's reflected here. And I think there was some concern expressed that somehow this puts responsibility on seasonal users, but actually they're not sub-licensees. This is what's going on today, and it isn't any different from what's going on today. I just wanted to make that very clear.
Yeah, there'd be no other entity other than, assuming this gets adopted, there'd be no other entity with any obligations whatsoever. They would simply be docking for a fee, and all the obligations would be on the part of the sloop club. You know, to the extent that they have informal advice that, hey, such and such boat just pulled up and they get a call or something like that, they could make use of that. But there's no obligation on the part of anybody else to do anything. But anyway, this is, from the description, this was reflective of how it's been going on, and that's needs to be to your satisfaction.
So in the red line that we received, I think I got it down yesterday, I will circulate it to the full council so that they can see there was a minor change under section 9, clarifying, the licensee understands that instead of the premises of the municipal dock, that the public pier must remain unlocked and open to the public at all times. Walking on the public pier space licensed by the licensee rather than the public dock. And again, changing restrict access to the public pier for safety reasons. So I don't think, Ken, there were any issues with that.
No, most of the rest of the things were technical.
Yes.
There were quite a lot of them, but they're not of much interest for the most part.
And then there is one issue related to insurance that, Ken, I believe you are going to look into. The proposal from the sloop club was to put that at a 1 year rather than survival period rather than a 3 year. And I believe you were going to research that before we.
We're going to look at that. There are a couple of remaining issues that are pretty technical, and again, there was some other input that came in the last day or so. So they're just, most of these shouldn't be a big deal, but we do need to reconcile a few different concerns. But we'll get back to you on the details of those.
Any questions from the council on this document? You have, from now to next week to review and consider.
I don't have questions. I just want to acknowledge that we received communication from folks at the Hudson Ferry Company just asking for things to be more clearly spelled out. I don't know if this is the appropriate time to give the floor to.
Well, I'm first of all asking council members if they
Yeah,
have.
that's the only comment that I have. Is if there's.
And that communication was posted. So now any members of the public want to ask questions or speak? I don't see any hands raised.
Oh, yeah. Mark DePace from Hudson Ferry Company.
Mhm.
So, yeah, we did send through a few of our concerns. We didn't interpret the language about, in 1B about management responsibility, but it does read like who would be responsible for collecting fees, which is not part of our current operations. So that could.
I'm sorry, can you speak up a little?
For 1B, it does read like Hudson Ferry Company could be asked to collect fees.
No, that's actually what you don't have any obligation. We could perhaps make that a little clearer, but in the discussions, Sloop Club was saying sometimes if they're not around, they will informally get a call from somebody who's a long-term docking, but nobody other than Sloop Club has any obligation whatsoever. You will not handle any money. You will not tell people to leave. You have zero obligation. If you happen to see somebody pull up on the dock who maybe ought not be there or whatever, and you informally want to call a Sloop Club and tell them to come on down, they would welcome that. But you have zero obligation of any kind.
And also,
For the sake of clarity.
sorry, just a moment, please, hang on, just a moment. You have to recognize before you speak. Just a
Oh, I'm
moment.
sorry.
I want to finish this
Yes.
off. This is why changing the language around sub-licenses is so important. And our understanding from meeting with Sam was that there are fairly informal relationships here between the long-term users and the Sloop Club, and that you work with each other. But this does not make you, as a kind of saying, liable in any way.
Okay,
So
yeah,
does that allay some of your concern around that?
yeah, like Ken suggested, if it could just be clarified a little bit, that would be helpful, because if there's any room for misinterpretation,
Right.
that
Yeah.
needs to.
We can easily put another line that expressly says no other party other than Sloop Club has any
Right.
obligations whatsoever, other than to pay the docking fees.
I actually think it would be great
Sorry,
if the mention of this seasonal leaseholders could just be taken out of that section altogether. It's the sloop club's responsibility to manage the dock. That responsibility should not, there should be no reference to a seasonal leaseholder in that section, because it does open the door for liability for seasonal leaseholders.
You're a seasonal tenant.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm using the wrong language, seasonal tenants, but I would appreciate it if that language was very, very clear.
And yeah, outside of that, just want to make sure that the language in section 2 allows us continuous access to the dock, staff on the sloop side is not present. And then, would love to,
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Your agreement is with the sloop club. Sloop club agreement is with the city. So you would need to work out with the sloop club what your arrangement is. It's not, you don't have an agreement with the city.
But the city, the mayor has to sign the agreement, so it is with the city.
The mayor has to say, yes, this group, yes, sloop club, you can, do a seasonal, agreement with this group. But
I'm sorry, you did just ask for the language to be more specific, that you were not legally bound.
Correct.
So that makes you not a lessee.
Right.
No, it doesn't make us not a lessee, it just makes it clarifies the language around what the responsibility is of the sloop club. If the relationship is changing this year,
no, this is,
the organization, well, it is changing, because last year, our lease, the seasonal lease, had to come through the common council.
which we removed to make things simpler.
Okay, that's great. So
This sets our tenant up for success and protects them in a financial and legal sense, and separates the city financially and legally for the hopefully never happening scenarios. So the past agreement was a little fast and loose, and I think
right.
everyone can agree that it just clarifies that language and makes it much more black and white.
As clear as it can be is great.
Yes, so it sounds like you would like two separate agreements, one for the sloop club and one for the ferry, to have separate,
That's how it has been in the past. If that is changing, then that's great. The mayor doesn't need to sign that agreement then?
The mayor needs to approve seasonal, long-term seasonal.
I'm just trying to understand the
Well,
relationship.
if
But
you're
your
not getting,
relationship is with the sloop club.
So then the mayor doesn't need to sign
The mayor has to approve who the sloop club enters into an agreement with, but there's no interference in your relationship with the sloop club.
Yeah, that's between council and the sloop club.
it. Got it?
And we're gonna give permission to sloop club to use you guys.
Okay.
That's all. And
It's not the way it's been in the past, so it's nice
Yeah,
to have it clarified.
in the past, you guys weren't operating it. 10 years ago it was another operator, and before that it was another operator. So fortunately, things have changed and progressed to
Yeah,
a
no, I'm
point.
happy to hear this. It's great news. Thank you.
Sam, do you have anything you want to add? Okay.
No.
Um,
Happy to questions, but.
okay, so, Ken, I think we can try to, get the revisions that we've got here. You're gonna clarify the insurance piece. And hopefully we will have a final document by next week.
If everybody can get on board, yes.
Okay. All right. The next item is open meetings. So Ken, I'm gonna hand this over to you as to what our steps are here. I have explained to in the legal committee and also to the council that essentially what we're doing here, and Ronnie was correct that there was in fact a law in 2022. The 2022 law, as I read it, however, simply said that we would follow whatever the state extraordinary circumstances were. But we do in fact have the ability to define our own criteria for what constitutes extraordinary circumstances. So the essence of this is to lay out the situation in which a council member can participate fully in a meeting over video conference in what circumstances and be able to vote. New York State law does, for qualifying disability, allow someone who is absent for reason of disability who also count as part of the quorum, which was not in our law from 2022, by the way. So essentially, this is just codifying to a large extent what we're already doing. So Ken, I'm going to pass it over to you as to what our next steps are with this.
Well, since you've already got it as a local law, the only way to supersede a local law is with another local law. So if you had nothing on the books, you could adopt this practice, this policy, either by resolution or by local law, but you've already got a law. So you're going to have to either amend or repeal this one. I think you could probably just state it as amending section C-3412 of the charter, which is where this is, and this is what they did last time. It would just be a local law to amend section C-3412 to read as follows, and it would be what has just been circulated to you. It is a little more extensive, clarifies. One of the things is you don't want ambiguity, as much as possible, you don't want ambiguities about what qualifies and what doesn't. So we try to include a few things. I had used this for a couple of other municipalities. We tweaked it a little bit here. But in the case it's not perfectly clear, there's also a determination to be made in first place by the council president, who would, if someone says they can't be here because of this reason, and it's not clearly in the law that that's a reason, council president would make the first call, but with the ability of a majority of the council to override that. So you ultimately could make case-by-case decisions if it's really unclear whether somebody's claim to be absent fell within the law. We try to make it cover the things that would tend to come up. There's a couple provision in there for someone who, for example, has to work at something outside their regular schedule. You know, if somebody shouldn't be calling in remotely because of their normal behavior. I mean, the definition is extraordinary circumstances, but to try to allow for, you don't necessarily have to be halfway across the country. There can be things that are closer to home that may cause someone to be unexpectedly unable to be there. So I think the process would be to introduce this as a local law, to amend that section and go through the local law process, the public hearing and such, and then just essentially replacing it as of amendment in its entirety of that section. So if people want to look at the content of the proposed thing and see if there are any concerns with it, that would probably be the way to go.
And Ken, if we go the approach of introducing it as a local law, this is where we have to have a public hearing, correct? And then after the public hearing, once we have the final version of this law, then we can vote on it, correct?
Yeah, you have to have a public hearing, and then a local law has to be in its final form for 8 days, 7 days, not counting Sundays technically. So that's one of the reasons why the informal meetings are scheduled 8 days ahead of the formal meetings. Things can be put in there. You basically can't make changes to the law within 8 days of the date of enactment.
And given that we will have to make some changes here to accommodate the fact that this is now going to be, I believe we have to make some changes because of the existing current local law, correct?
It has to be reformatted as a local law.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that means we won't be voting on it next week.
Well, wouldn't count for the 8 days.
It's only 7 days anyway, because today is Tuesday. So we.
I mean, you do have the
we'll
existing law in effect right now, so you do have some opportunity,
Yeah.
some ability to
Yeah.
do this anyway. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think we're taking.
It'll be March probably when we vote on. Just one sec. Anything else on the process, Ken? Okay.
Not really. You know, I think. Yeah, I can reformat it quickly. You could introduce it at the full meeting if you wanted.
Yeah.
Next week.
Yeah, we can do
Next
that.
week and get the
We can
process
introduce it
rolling.
next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dominic had a question.
Yeah, and so if I remember reading it with the open meetings law with the video, that if you're excused, right, you have to, give so many, hours ahead of time or whatever. And if I read an open meeting law correctly, that you have to say where you're at, because that actually becomes a spot that somebody could attend the meeting wherever you are.
It doesn't have to, all locations don't have to necessarily be open anymore, I don't believe.
Yeah.
There has to,
Okay.
what it says is that there has to be at least one place, which would be where you are right now, where the public can attend in person.
Right.
But
Got it.
that's one of the things that doesn't require that everybody be able to attend at every single location. There's the notice for the meeting does require that there be notice to the public that video conferencing would be used.
Right.
But in practice, you might not know until very late. Obviously, if somebody has something go wrong at the last minute, they would know. But I don't see any reason why it isn't permissible to just note in the standard notice for the public meeting or for the meeting that video conferencing may be used. It is available. So it's just a matter of course, make that notification that people understand that could happen.
So what we talked about was having in our notification of meetings on the calendar, just have a statement in every one of them that some members of the council may be participating via video conference. The other thing to your point about notifying in advance the president of the council or whoever is chairing the meeting, by definition, if you have an extraordinary event like you're sick or, whatever, you've been in an accident or you just got told you have to stay late for a meeting at work, you're not going to have 4 days notice of when you're sick. So in item number 6, we simply made that if a member is unable to be physically present at one of the designated public meeting locations and wishes to participate by video conferencing, the member should notify the council president prior to the scheduling. And so that makes it so that indeed, if you wake up and you're sick and you need to stay home, you should notify, but trying to put something in where you have to say when you have to notify, it's just not realistic.
Right, yeah, unless you're on vacation or, that's
If
what.
it's something that you know about in advance, yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
right, okay, gotcha, yeah. Cool.
And there's a limit. There's a limit on that. If you're doing it on a discretionary personal basis, you want to be away, you want to travel, you want to do something. This would allow you to do that on two occasions in the course of the year.
Right.
You could.
Yeah, right.
Put a limit.
So yes,
And
if you're on
that-
vacation, but you
that's
can't move.
yeah.
You can't go to Florida for the winter and call in, for 6 months. That's not going to fly.
I love the
But,
pool.
Okay.
Any other questions on this? Read it, take a look, comment. And we will get a version, hopefully a final version to introduce next week.
Thank you.
Finally, the bills, next week we will have the usual summary sheet that we vote on. I've reviewed them and Ronnie has signed off. They are always available in the clerk's office for review if you want to look at the invoices. When we meet next week and we have the summary, if you have any questions, I should be able to answer any questions you have. I've gone through each invoice. And that's that. Other than that, I do not think I have anything else. Is there any new business? Oh, there's a hand raised. Go ahead,
Ronald?
Ron, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify something about remote participation by council members. As I understand the law up to this point, people who are making up a quorum, council members, must be present physically in a given location. Is that correct?
That is correct.
With one
Okay.
exception.
Yes, the one exception.
And that location must be accessible to the public.
That's correct.
Okay.
And the
So,
exception, Ron, is
I-
somebody who has a valid qualifying disability can be counted for form.
okay. Now,
That's
the
New York State
revision,
law.
the revision will enable a person participating remotely to count toward quorum.
No, only,
No.
not,
Only
there's
if-
only one circumstance and they have to have a disability as defined by the New York State law. It cannot be just an unexpected event or being away or anything of the kind. The only time a person can be counted for quorum purposes is when that person has a disability as described in the New York law.
And if that person is either participating remotely and counting toward a quorum, or participating remotely but not voting, but simply for purposes of comment, that person must be live on camera.
Yes.
Correct. All right.
Need to be visible. Yes.
I have one more.
So Ron,
Okay,
in the section of, in the section of this document, I think they're asking questions about, if you look at item number 8, that describes the exception for a person with a disability who can participate as part of the forum. And it lays it out and cites the section of executive law that applies.
Matt McGee also has a question.
Yes, what is the name of the law that you are amending?
It's section C34-12 of the City of Hudson Charter. And this is all based on Public Officers Law, section 103-A. That is the authorizing New York State statute that allows video conferencing, but also sets out the very specific processes and parameters that need to be in place to do it. So this is based on section 103 of the New York Public Officers Law. It would be amending section C34-12 of the City of Hudson Charter.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to say welcome to Mr. Dow as counsel to the council.
Thank you. It's
So
interesting to be back.
It's going to get more interesting.
Yeah.
Trust us. We have a member of the public who wants to speak.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Molsa from the Business and Family Circus and a 20-year First Ward resident. And I want to thank Mr. Moranti for bringing up reference to an email that I sent to all council members and yourself, Council President Morris, concerning the assistant director position at the youth center. As somebody who has served the families and youth of Hudson for more than 20 years, and been a longtime partner of the youth center, I want to stress the urgency of this position. In the time that I've been here, the services that the youth center offers to the community and families have more than doubled since COVID. The responsibility for maintaining the property that they're in has in Oakdale, and now a third property at the Hudson Area Library on the 3rd floor of the senior center, puts an undue burden on the director. The assistant director position is critical now. This is the time when the entire staff is planning for the summer. The summer serves hundreds of children from Hudson. And it's of critical importance for the city's own this liability to the city and the safety of our families, that there are highly qualified, trained staff members there to run all of the properties that the youth department is responsible for. So I urge you to reconsider there are multiple things in the youth center's budget that need to be addressed. There's a retirement that needs to be addressed. There is this salary line needs to be addressed. And again, going back to the what's the word? The superintendent, the person who is responsible for maintenance, that needs addressing as well. So I just want to raise that back up in front of you all to make that decision.
So thank you for your communication. It was posted. It is on our website. My understanding of the process, and I did attend the BEA meetings, at the time that the BEA put a hiring freeze in place, all vacancies across the city are subject to a hiring freeze. The position of the assistant director is currently vacant. And so I believe the process that would happen is if the mayor makes a decision that this is a critical and essential position, then it would eventually flow around through treasurer's office to this council to make a decision on funding of the position. But there is a process for that. And I think there's a misconception that a position was eliminated erroneously, and you did make a reference to erroneous in your email. The error that occurred was that a line was eliminated that was currently occupied by a full-time staff member, and that was corrected in December to ensure that that.
That's why I didn't.
No, sorry, just let me
decide
finish.
you in a
Sorry, let me
particular
finish.
moment because
Sorry, let me
President
finish.
Morris, I
Let me finish.
deliberately chose
Sorry,
not to
excuse
address
me.
that because that was an error.
Excuse me. The error that occurred was corrected in December. All I'm saying is that there is a process that needs to be followed to identify this as a critical position. Then there will be a budget amendment that will come to this council for a vote. That's the process that will follow. That's all.
The public, how the public can, become part of the process to raise the.
You should write to the mayor. Write to us, write to the mayor, write to your write to your council members. That what you did in submitting your letter is precisely what you should be doing.
Thank you.
Any, Logan, are there any answers? Okay. We have one more comment.
Yeah, Bill Hughes from 558 State Street. I'd like to bring up a few, actually several if I can, issues of concern for me and issues and concerns I would hope for all the council members here.
Just a point of order. You may make a comment on one issue.
One issue, the issue being all the problems around town. How about South 3rd Street? All you members should know, if you're not aware, that in 2017, as part of the CHIPS program that year, this repaving project that the state pays for, Colarusso repaved South 3rd Street from Allen to Warren Street, 2017. Cost the state about $12,000 or so. That's 2 blocks. About 4 months after it was paved, I noticed it started to crack. It was beginning to crack already at Allen Street. Within 3 years, so in 2020 or 21, DPW had to dig up 2 feet below that street to replace what's known as a subbase. And it came out at a council meeting in 2020 or 21, just before DPW did that Rob Perry okayed Colarusso to repave that street, even though he and Colarusso were fully aware that the subbase of that street was faulty. Okay? It took a week for DPW to replace a space in the southbound lane. It probably cost $15,000 or $20,000, I imagine. Then they did a space closer to Warren Street, also on the southbound. Had to close down the lane. So that was 2020 and 21, I believe, possibly later. The street is now coming apart again because, as Rob Perry said, the subbase was faulty. He was well aware of it, and he went and had them repave it. And now DPW is going to have to repave a portion of that street again. And essentially, the entire street, the entire 2 blocks that haven't been replaced yet, need to be replaced. This is not a repaving job. This is a replacement job. And Rob Perry doesn't talk about it. And you all should know how expensive this is going to be. And that it needs, you people need to be aware of what's going on there because it's not being talked about, but you're all going to be paying for it. We're all going to be paying for it for years to come.
Okay. Thank you for your comment. Are there any other public comments? Go ahead.
I would just like to second everything that Stephanie said about the youth department. I've said this before, but I think that we need to move quickly to bring that position back. And I'm glad to hear that it sounds like the council is in support of that. The council sees how important it is, and it just needs to go to the mayor first, and then the mayor can bring it back here, and we can move forward with it. So knowing that that's the case, and that that's how the public and people who are concerned should pursue this is great that that was clarified. Thanks to Dominic for taking the lead on a very important issue that does, as Stephanie said, very much affect the safety of all of those kids, my kids included, who go to that summer camp and are supervised by the staff under that assistant director. So it's a big issue that needs to be taken care of. So thanks for being ready when the mayor's office lets you guys know.
Well, Nick, I think it's also the idea that currently the way it's structured is Calvin's the only supervisor.
Correct.
So, right, I know, so that's one of the need for the assistant director is to be supervising not just the kids, but the staff, so, yeah, so. I realize how important that position is, so it's, again, there's a process. I'm gonna try to do my best to make sure it's streamlined as quickly as possible, but as you know, sometimes that's not feasible to do it as quickly as we should, but we definitely are in, the way to do it.
100%.
So I believe we have no more new business. We have one more public comment.
Thank you for recognizing me, Council President Lloyd Ketting. I would like to reiterate my consideration that the library, which the city pays for, and it's by a referendum, I understand that. But I don't think because it was a referendum, it obviates any fiduciary responsibility of the city to see that services are provided. Now, the library in its wisdom in the last 7 years has limited services. When you go to their board meeting, they say that they didn't limit services. It's kind of a unique twist of reality. But in reality, when you are less able to use the services, that's limited. I think that this is worthy of consideration and fiduciary a responsibility of the city to see that their funds are well spent and not limited. And I would recommend to this man that the services committee might be interested in engaging and looking into this. And thank you for your kind consideration in this matter.
Thank you for that comment. So I believe we have no more new business. However, we do need, Ken, I think we need to go into executive session, correct?
I did have one thing that I want to raise.
Let me check with Ken. Ken? That's all right. Can you hear us, Ken?
You're muted.
Sorry, yeah. Yes, you're gonna
We
wanna
are
go
on
into,
quick-
you're gonna wanna go into executive session, make a motion to go into executive session to discuss Article 7 tax cert litigation matter.
So we'll make a motion for that in a moment, but I want to make sure all of the business is finished so that we
Yeah,
can
yeah.
let the public go, knowing that when we come back out of executive session, that there will not be any additional business. So Claire had something she wanted to bring up.
I have been talking to Senator Hinchy's office about doing a tax preparation event for constituents. If any other council members want to co-sponsor with me, I would invite you to join the conversation. I just want Hinchy's office to present to constituents what tax breaks are available, what proposed legislation is at the state table right now for further tax breaks for seniors. So that there's just an education point, and possibly in partnership with Columbia Opportunities as they have free tax preparers. So if anybody else wants to co-sponsor that with me, I'd love to.
Yeah, for sure.
But, so can we have a motion to enter executive session?
Motion.
Second,
Second.
so motion is complete. So if you could take care of the online.
Recording stop too.
Yeah.
Yeah.